Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Top Leaders. I'm so excited to have a special guest with us today. I want to tell you a little bit about Gurpreet Baum. She is the head of enterprise and solution architecture at Guardian Life. She is focused on serving technology architecture and innovation needs for all business units across Guardian. She has a passion for creating capabilities-based architecture, strategic technology roadmap, and effective operating models. Prior to Guardian, she held multiple leadership positions within engineering and architecture organizations at S&P Global. Her experience spans across Fortune 500 companies such as S&P Global, Goldman Sachs, and General Electric. Throughout her career, she's known to be elegantly determined. She believes in serving the community by laying the foundation for future technologists via NPower, Girls Who Code, Power to Fly, WIT, and more. She currently serves on the board for PRAB as a board member, a private sector, and is on the WIA, which is Women in Architecture Leadership, and a thought leader at Chief Architect Forum. Thank you for joining me on today's Top Leaders, Gurpreet.
Thank you for having me, Jen.
Yeah, it's so good to have you here. And I love that you're doing all the things in the community as well as in the work world. So thank you for all the ways that you're showing up. Today, we are going to talk about your personal brand and help people to understand what a personal brand is and how that's helping you to be a better technology leader. So before we jump into that, I'm going to give a couple rapid fire questions here. So first of all, salty or sweet?
Salty.
Salty. That's my girl. Okay. What's your favorite book today?
OpenAI.
Okay. Awesome. And if you could go somewhere right now, today, anywhere in the world, where would you want to travel to?
Belize.
Really? Ooh, that sounds awesome. I love it. I love it. I went to college with a gal from Belize, and I've never taken her up on the invite to come visit her. I need to do that. Sounds good. So let's, first of all, what is your personal brand?
You've helped me through this process, Jen, and it really is elegantly determined. And it was very exciting and enlightening to see that coming from the others as how they viewed me and how I was perceived by the others. It is amazing. It is amazing what others can tell you about yourself that you might undermine. So through the exercise, I knew this, and what it means is that if I'm behind something, I will do it despite the pushback, despite the setback, and I will do it in a very respectful way. I will find different ways to do it, and continue the journey.
I love that. I love that. I was thinking, I mean, you've known what your brand is for a little bit, being elegantly determined. And I was curious, what does that mean to you now to know that and to have it succinctly in just a couple of words? What does that mean to you?
It means if you believe in something and it is validated through the time, through the actions, then you ought to continue the path.
Nice.
And bring everybody along. And through this journey, forget who gets credit. I think you have to get to the point where when what you want is done, that's the achievement. You may not get the credit in the short term, but the experience that you have, the validation that you received for yourself, the experience you built for yourself is the biggest credit that nobody can ever take away.
I love that. That's so awesome. So let's talk about some examples. How are you leveraging your personal brand at work? What's showing up for you?
I'll take a simple example. At workplace, nobody likes governance. Governance is like, oh, this is a control, it's going to slow us down, etc. But when you start the approach and when you go to those people who are coming, the first thing that you tell them is that we are here to help you. So not only asking the questions, but helping find answers for them, not leaving them alone to find the answers for that. Simplifying the process, even if it causes pain for us, because I think as enterprise architects, that's one of our strongest jobs. And making sure that whatever simplification we bring in the process is also controlled and governed so that we can audit it, so that we can make sure there's accountability. So you bring simplicity, and if, when you cannot bring simplicity, you have an explanation. Mm-hmm. Right. So mm-hmm. one of the best examples, and I gave governance, is like you pair facts with the narrative. You can never go wrong.
Okay. I love that. I love that. And it's coming back to that word of determined, right? There's going to be a thing that we're going to do here. We're going to implement something, technology, but then that determination that you put behind things.
One thing with the determination is that it's a very exhausting exercise. It's a very exhausting behavior because you are not willing to give up, and you know how much is going to take to convince them. Sometimes it's years, right? Yeah, sure. Sometimes teams change, how you want to elevate your team, how you want to elevate the organization, how you want to elevate yourself. Mm-hmm. So it's a very exhausting exercise. As much as I am determined, I do know from experience that it's a supremely exhausting exercise.
Mm-hmm. Right. I can see that. Well, and it's, I think about you're in a unique situation where as an individual person, you have your career that you want to grow, that you want to develop. Right. And so, and yet how many people do you have in your organization right now that directly report to you and then fully? So how many people do you have?
There are about 12 directly.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right. So, but the impact that these 12 people create, the impact that these 12 mm-hmm. people create is across the organization for every single thing that is going on in the organization. Mm-hmm. And it's super powerful.
Yeah.
Right. Today we are quite application focused. And what we want to do is bring ourselves out, train others. That is how we are going to expand our organization, by training others so that they can do these things. And this provides multiple opportunities. It provides us to become true enterprise architects, define for ourselves what does enterprise architecture mean for our organization.
Okay.
And how is it going to help my organization? Mm-hmm. And you skill and empower others. So now people who are questioning governance exactly know why were the questions and how those questions are actually helping them implement, how they're adding to their own technology skill set, own organizational skill set, governance skill set, and making them a true professional as a whole, and not like a Java developer, a .NET developer. You want to go beyond that.
Right. Absolutely. Because the last I checked, technology exists because it's helping to solve a problem, right? It's not just existing just for the sake of Java just exists.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. I love that. It's so good. And it's, so I was thinking about is the fact so that within your purview, you've got a couple of dozen people that then they have this impact, that goes out from there. And then all the way to your customers. Right. And really, quite honestly, your customer's customer. I mean, it just keeps going.
Correct. It's internal customers, mm-hmm. It's external customers. Guardian has a strong mid-market for insurance in group benefits. We have individual life. We have very strong insurance products and strong credibility in the market. Our leadership team is excellent in where it wants to lead Guardian. Our technology team is excellent. Our technology leadership is excellent in how it wants to support business to get where we want to. And we are finding innovative ways, not just limited to technologies, but how we invest in technology and more.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And Guardian's been around a long time. It's not like
a 160-year-old company.
Right? That's remarkable. And think about how 160 years ago, they couldn't even comprehend the idea of technology.
There is a lot to come. There is a lot to come as the entire Web3, the entire way of thinking. So we are going to go places.
Mm-hmm. Right. Absolutely. It's good stuff. It's awesome. I know I'm an end user of it, as far as in the consumer side of it, and so I think that's great. So, but I don't think about, oh, how are they architecting something so that the software does the thing, right? I mean, so, and yet there's still the promise of what Guardian provides in the world, right, for the
Yeah.
customers, right? And yet there's the thing that's happening inside, so you guys can fulfill on that promise.
Our team, our CEO very clearly laid down, right? Our team really is wowing the customer, right? And our underlying foundation within that is that the capability exists within us. It's in us, which also was our theme for the software development conference that we held this year for 2022, which my team ran, a very successful event, and did amazing activities with like 39 different skill sessions, with volunteering opportunities, with philanthropic opportunities related to technology, with the really inclusion of D&I within the space that tells us how we ought to think, even just with AI. It allows us how the AI that we build, how do we want that AI to think? What are the inputs that we are going to send in those for the expected outcomes? How do we avoid bias? So a lot was covered within that one day, and it was like fully packed. We
Yeah.
had more than 1,000 employees attending it, participating in it, contributing towards it.
That's awesome. Wonderful. What a great example of you helping to lead the charge. I know your people also help to facilitate all of that too, but that's great. I love that. Good example of elegantly determined, because putting on a conference for even 100 people is a lot. 1,000, that's huge. There's a lot of details to manage with that. So let's talk about technology leadership for a moment. You've been in tech leadership for years. You've got a lot of different background. Today, what are you worried about when it comes to tech leadership and how leaders in the tech space are growing or not growing? What are you worried about there?
I think one of the biggest challenges that the leaders of tech face today is that our counterparts from business hear a lot about technology, the way technology is sold to them, and the promises they are made when the tech is sold. And they're sold on the idea, but when you really get into the weeds, you see that it's not entirely true. These are the gaps, these are the holes. And when you take that back, it's not very pleasant conversation. So to answer the question, I think one of the biggest challenges, the entire community thinks that they are technologists,
Okay.
right? And there is a lot of energy that goes into explaining that, and it's great. But I think that trust, that strong trust between business and technology ought to exist to remove any noise, to really create seamless processes,
Yeah.
seamless integrations. And what that does is that creates a strong framework for everybody coming from the outside to sell stuff inside.
Okay.
Right? And internally, and like that's one. And then second thing I think is there is so much to keep up. There's so much to keep up for technologists today that it's really almost becoming impossible. So setting the expectation that we may not know everything. That, and the third thing which I strongly think is that with everything so much going on within the technology space, the other areas is with everybody else trying to do data, AI, innovation from non-technology organizations within any company, how do you create those operating models that are seamless, which go back to strong technology and business partnerships, right? And then I think we are very thankful that Guardian team actually has very strong partnerships, and it becomes easier to operate. It becomes faster to innovate. So it's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And along with all of this comes the fact that we as technologists, we think everything else is low hanging fruit, like communication, like cooperation and collaboration. What are the true meanings of that? And we always keep that aside and never make part of the development goals. That's the biggest barrier
Mm.
from mid-level management to senior leadership within the technology org.
Yeah. Yeah. So that it sounds like a bit of you're worried about that disconnect.
More than disconnected, it's really look at where the major of the workforce is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the foundations they've had.
Mm-hmm.
And has communication been one of the subjects that they have to go through? Do they understand that communication does not mean me talking to you? Like a regular chat is different than a chat in a boardroom, different than a chat at senior leadership. And how do you do that? How do you prepare for that?
Mm-hmm.
How do you, there's a lot of attention around like you communicate with empathy, which I always thought were very commonsensical as humans, but we seem to have drifted away from that, and we need programs to bring us back together.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually loved the video. I'm sorry that I'm sidetracking. I just saw a video this morning where a dinosaur walks into a UN meeting and really nudges everybody to say, hey, it's time that you help your own species not getting extinct with everything that's happening around, because I know what it feels like to be extinct, so save yourself. So I really love the video.
That's great.
It
Right.
is. It is.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's an interesting comparison there, right? With the analogy of, okay, here's a dinosaur that they thought, who knows? We could just, pontificate and think, oh, they thought they were, impenetrable. They're going to be fine. Right. And then these, whatever happened that killed off the dinosaurs, and so, but are we listening to people who've been around? Are we paying attention to how history can repeat itself? Even though, take a company like Guardian 160 years ago, you didn't have technology as it is today, right?
Yep.
But there's still things to be learned and to pay attention to. And then how do we learn from that and safeguard ourselves going forward? So that's great.
Cool. It's important for many. It's important for all organizations, right? I still remember few years back we were at this celebration table, and there was a very senior person, and I had said something in response where I said every company is going to be a technology company, and I was looked at and stared at as if I had said something very wrong.
Mm.
And I actually did think that I said something very wrong. But again, time has proved itself.
Mm-hmm.
Time has showed, and I think I'm very thankful that at Guardian there is already a strong realization and acknowledgement that we have to move with the market. We have to move with the industry,
Yeah.
and we cannot afford to sit back. So there are proactive measures instead of reactive measures, which is a great thing for any company and an organization to acknowledge and actually invest into it. So that's awesome.
Yeah. No, I love that for sure. I appreciate that you touched on this thing around human to human connection and communication and whatnot, because sometimes it's like, oh, we're going to let the tech do the thing. Right. So then we're going to get rid of people in essence. Right. So the technology can do the thing, but not really. We can't. We've got to remember the people.
You're right. You're absolutely correct, because, they say that wars can be eliminated when two people talk with
Right.
empathy.
Exactly. Right.
Right.
For sure.
So, yeah. And again, like this is not about Guardian, but I'm bringing that example up. One of the stronger things at Guardian is that it's a very, very people-centric company. And anytime any decision is made, anytime we are setting operating interactions or operating models, people have been the center of focus in that.
Good. Yeah.
And it's really very refreshing to see that.
I love that. It's important to see it. I wanted to touch in our conversation today about this idea of compassion in the workplace. How would you define compassion?
Everyone is at a very different stage in their life. And you have to, like, one thing is nobody ever gets up from the bed saying, I am going to mess around with everybody today. That's my goal.
Hopefully not. Yeah.
Right? I
Right.
don't think anybody does that. I
Mm-hmm.
think somebody has a new baby, somebody's just getting married, somebody's just divorced, somebody lost someone, somebody's going through some health crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Just the fact with the chat, if we can support them,
Mm-hmm.
gives them the moral ability to stand and step up,
Right. I love that.
right?
Right.
Doing a little bit for them or covering a little bit for them
Mm-hmm.
and guiding them towards getting into the right path.
Yeah.
Even though we don't control, I can't control any of that. But what I can provide is compassion during the time and the phase. Because we're all humans. We are all going to go through that in certain stage of life.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if we haven't gone through it ourselves, we can still listen and connect, right? So,
We know somebody that's close to us, or we know somebody that we know, like someone has is going through or will go, like like once Buddha said, right? He was walking through the town and the woman comes and says, my child died. You are close to God. Make him alive again. And he said, bring me handful of rice from the house where there was never a death. I will make your child alive.
right. Yeah. Yes, very interesting for sure. So the reason why I wanted to touch on compassion a little bit is because I know that Gurpreet, you're somebody that you really seek to connect with people, right? And really get to know them. And so as we're in this conversation around what are you noticing around tech leadership and whatnot, what's something that you would like to share, maybe an advice, if you will, or a nugget, a pearl of wisdom to help other people who are in tech leadership to help them to be compassionate as well? What would you like to share?
I think one of the KPIs I set for myself is like, if I cannot elevate my team via skilling, via maturity, via certain parameters, I
Yeah.
have not done my job correctly,
Yeah.
right? So it has to be more than me. Because if my team elevates, I am elevated automatically.
Mm-hmm.
If my team grows, I have tripled that effect, then I have grown automatically.
Yeah.
So I think the team elevation needs to be really looked at very carefully. And again, I am going to be, there's a disclaimer, it's a very exhausting exercise, but you sign up for it when you take on leadership,
Yes. Right.
right? And leadership is a very thankless job, right? If you want to do it in the right way, where you do servant leadership per se, like this term is very famous these days. But if you are really going through, and people don't understand it, people misuse it, people misunderstand it, not just the person who's doing it, but person who's receiving it too.
Right.
So please, leaders out there, technology leadership, make sure you create forums where they can skill, not just technically, but non-technology skills. It's important. It will make their life easier. It will make your life easier. It will create efficiencies within the organization. So do that. Because anybody who crossed an engineering degree and is very good technically, they will learn new technology. It's not the problem. When you create that forum, it's the other areas where you need to nudge them a little more. So create both forums, make sure that they are aware and continue to make them aware.
I love that. That's awesome. Good encouragement. Thank you. Thank you for that. Gurpreet, I love who you are and what you stand for about being elegantly determined. And I'm really glad that you are in the world and making a difference from a leadership perspective. So thank you so much for coming and joining us today on today's Top Leaders.
Thank you very much for having, Jen. I appreciate it.